Sim racing has gone through many evolutions since it emerged in the 80s. In the past few years, we've seen another massive leap in the form of direct drive force feedback. Simucube is a brand owned by Granite Devices. They basically took the DIY out of getting set up with direct drive and offered a more polished, plug-and-play product. The Simucube 2 range is the second iteration of that effort, and today I take a look at their Simucube 2 Pro 25Nm torque wheel. I'm Lawrence and welcome to the channel. Introduction. On the left you see all the sections in this video. I've put timestamped links to each section in the description below. While you're down there, please hit the thumbs up button to help YouTube suggest this video to others like you. 70% of you who are watching right now are not subscribed to this channel. Please consider subscribing and hit the notification bell if you want to be notified about upcoming reviews. Ask anyone in sim racing about Simucube and they'll most likely mention the Simucube 2 Pro first and foremost. Whatever it is about this wheel, it seems to have captured the imagination of high-end sim racers around the world. More so than its little sibling, the SC2 Sport, and even more so than the more powerful version, the SC2 Ultimate. First impressions. Okay, so this isn't my first time ever using a Simucube 2 Pro. However, there's a big difference between using a product and owning a product. When I do reviews, I try to use them as if I own them. I use them for an extended period of time and even subject them to my official league races across various sim titles. Having this product to myself for a few weeks gave me the time I needed to explore settings and really gauge what, if anything, it gives me that my existing wheel doesn't already provide. The first thing that struck me was the sheer size of it. It weighs 10.6 kg, but these electric motors are so compact that it feels like more. I was worried that my Simutek K2 rig wouldn't be up for the task, but luckily it did a great job. The whole experience was a little intimidating for me. From having two power supplies, to having very industrial connectors for various cables, to having a flimsy looking antenna sticking out the back, it just felt like the thing needed to be handled with a lot of care. Price. This is high-end equipment. You probably already got that impression, but the price is not something that most people will have lying around to spend on their hobby. The wheelbase alone costs about €1,500, and that's before you've even bought a bracket to mount it to your rig, and before you have a steering wheel round. The costs add up quite quickly with devices like this. This particular setup that I've been using has a €130 mount and a €669 wireless steering wheel. So even in fairly basic form, you're looking at an investment of about €2,300 for a setup like this. That's a massive price tag, yet every person I know who has spent this money still considers it excellent value. Regardless of what I say, that alone is a great indicator as to whether you should buy this product or not if you're in the market. Setup. Hardware. You're going to need a sturdy rig, and that's before you even turn it on. This thing is heavy, especially for its size. The SC2 casing has no base or side mounting thread holes, so it can't simply be bolted to a standard rig's universal mounting plate. You'll need to buy a mount suited to your rig. I got to use this particular bracket, which fits both the Simucube and my rig very well. Having two power supplies was a little odd though. I'm guessing it's to keep costs down, but if like me you already have a shortage of sockets around your rig, this could be a small issue. The kill switch or emergency stop plunges into position and it requires rotation to unpop back up into operating position. Given the sheer power of any direct drive wheel, I wouldn't use one without a kill switch, even if it was a low torque wheel. It's like a seatbelt in a car. You won't be grateful for your kill switch until you actually need it. The quick release is effective, and although it's undoubtedly quick, it's not as pleasant to use as some other quick release systems. For me, the lovely sleek look of the expensive wheel and the wheelbase is somewhat tarnished by a giant pin sticking out at the top of the shaft. It just looks and feels a bit agricultural. Slotting your wheel rim in from the side rather than clicking it on isn't as satisfying as I'd like. The wireless antenna protrudes a lot and looks to be a real weak point as far as I can see. I'm not sure whether it needs to be so big either, considering the wireless wheel is usually only about 40 centimeters away. That said, the antenna is detachable, and just never rest the wheel on its rear because you might end up damaging that antenna. Setup, software. The Simucube software installation was great, very straightforward, and it even prompted me to upgrade my firmware, and the wizard to do so was quick and painless. Out of the box, the settings on Sims were odd to say the least, and my initial impressions of the wheel were actually quite poor. Luckily I have access to some hardcore sim racers who own these devices, and they shared settings with me that absolutely transformed my experience. I do find that I have to switch profiles, for example when I go from iRacing to Assetto Corsa. That is a bit of a pain, but seeing as every sim translates their physics slightly differently, this is a reality with most wheels and we just have to live with it. Changing profiles is easy, but I do wonder how difficult it will be for the software to associate a particular profile with a sim title. Several times I drove in a sim with the wrong profile and it just seems a little needless in this day and age. I'd love to see them add a feature where it detects the game that you're using and loads up the appropriate profile. Profiles are stored on the Wheelbase itself, which is interesting. If you move to another PC, you don't actually need to re-import your profiles. The TrueDrive software offers a lot of customization, and there are great videos explaining all the various settings. However, it can still be quite intimidating for people who aren't extremely technical regarding force feedback. There's no way around this though. If you're not sure what they all mean, try someone else's settings and see how it feels. It's difficult to make the SC2 Pro force feedback feel bad, but worth spending a time to make it perfect. Simucube Wireless. The Simucube Wireless wheel technology is very impressive. It was simple to set up and there was no noticeable latency when compared to a wired wheel. Having a wireless wheel saves on USB ports and also makes everything look that much neater. If you want a steering wheel rim with more than 28 functions, then the current Simucube Wireless wheel protocol isn't for you. There's a limit as to how many functions your wheel can have. However, some wheels like the Asher Racing F28 SC, which I recently reviewed, give you plenty of buttons and encoders while still giving you two fully functional directional hands. Wireless of course brings with it the limitation of battery life. If you want fancy lights, expect to see dramatically less battery life than a simpler wheel. However, Cube Control's Formula Sport, although it does have fancy lights, still gets about 40 hours on a single charge, which is impressive. Where the Asher F28 SC gets a whopping 2 to 3 years of battery life due to its streamlined approach, focusing on functionality rather than just aesthetics. Someday we may see a version of Simucube Wireless which supports screen outputs as well as analog inputs. I'm actually not sure about analog inputs, but there must be a reason why none of the wireless wheel options have dual clutch or launch control functionality. Wireless is great, but a well-routed coiled USB cable also works really well. I'd recommend not basing your decision about this wheelbase solely on the wireless technology limitations. Force feedback. Many people will tell you that 25 Nm of torque is overkill, and that may be the case in ways. You only end up running the force feedback at about 35 to 40%, so what's the point in all that power? That's a very reasonable question, but the main thing of interest here is firstly the type of motor that's used, but secondly, the ability for it to respond quickly and accurately. A motor on its own can only do so much, and that's where Simucube's TrueDrive software fills in the gaps. Although it's quite cumbersome and daunting in some ways, once you use the correct settings for your preferred sim title, TrueDrive has the ability to translate the information from your sim to your hands in a way that is clinically accurate, lightning fast, and delightfully precise. In summary, 25 Nm is a lot, but it's noticeably more rewarding than other, less powerful wheelbases. As force feedback is an essential part of proper immersion, those who are in the market for a long-term wheel upgrade will not be disappointed with this remarkable piece of engineering. When driving on your sim, you get information about your surroundings through your hands that you simply cannot see or hear. This is rewarding and gives amazing confidence while driving. There's a high torque mode which is disabled by default. I kept forgetting to set it and it just made for a bit of a cumbersome experience. However, when I moaned about this on a live stream, a user pointed out that once you enable high torque mode, you get an option to enable it by default after about 10 seconds. That option is a little bit hidden. I'm not sure why high torque mode can even be switched off, other than maybe some health and safety red tape. I can't imagine anyone buying one of these units and not knowing that the torque itself could snap a metal bar in half. Final thought. I went into this review with slight skepticism about the hype surrounding this product. The owners of these devices seem so happy with them, but the price tag is so hefty. Are happy Simucube owners simply defending their decision to spend so much money? Maybe some are, but with the right settings, this wheelbase is completely worth the money. I'll admit it, I get it now. Simucube has put years of experience and simplification of user experience into a beautifully presented, easy to set up package. Yes, I'm still intimidated by it, but rightly so. This thing has enough power to do serious damage. It needs to be used and treated with respect. With their TrueDrive software, great wireless technology, and beautiful form factor, I really loved owning this product for a few weeks. It looked and performed great. I couldn't really find many flaws with it other than some annoying chimes which seemed to go away after a firmware upgrade. Even the firmware upgrade was painless and TrueDrive held my hand through the process. It was surprisingly easy. The wireless wheel ecosystem is good, albeit slightly limited by Simucube Wireless's 28 input upper limit. I prefer a wired wheel simply because of the analog inputs and potential for things like a screen. It would be amazing to see Simucube develop their own range of entry-level wheels. A formula wheel, a GT style wheel, and a round wheel would sell like hotcakes, and the overall package for Simucube would be much cleaner and far more accessible for people who don't want to have to mix and match different brands. The quick release is effective but didn't leave me with any real feeling. It's functional but not very nice. Wedging a triangle sideways into a steering column and then sticking a large ugly pin through it just doesn't do it for me. There are other quick release systems out there like the Zero Place system, but they're very expensive. Those of you who know this channel will be familiar about how I feel about a good quick release system. This is my only real fault with this system. If you're in the market for a wheelbase which will serve you well as a long-term investment which doesn't lose a lot of value over time, then I have absolutely no doubts about recommending this steering wheel base. It's pretty incredible and has taught me a lot about force feedback and the potential that force feedback in simulation has. I'd love to hear your own experience or impressions in the comments below. Thanks to the community and the companies I work with for allowing me to review such amazing products. I'm Lawrence, thank you for your time and I'll chat to you later.